Today we have Dr. Parth Shah, the president of the Center for Civil Society, one of India's biggest think tanks, and it's running extremely successfully in the field of we say social change through public policy. Thank you, sir, for having me here. How long have you started? How long are you working in this field?
Center for Civil Society started in 1997, August 15.
Yeah.
So we chose that day particularly to signify that fact that in 1947 we got political independence from the British Raj, right? But we have not yet gotten economic independence from the Indian state or Indian Raj, right? So to highlight that fact, we decided to have CCS being founded on 15th August 1997 when I came back from the US.
So what initially inspired you to start teaching at the University of Michigan and then coming back to India and forming this organization?
I think teaching, of course, is love of ideas and love of reading, right? So if you love reading, you love discussing, debating ideas, then the best place is academia. That's my first love. So academic life made perfectly good sense, and I really enjoyed my time in Michigan. I also realized at the time working there that India was not doing that well. Initially, of course, we all thought that we are not doing so well because of the people who we are, right? When by going to US, by studying economics, you sort of begin to realize it's not so much how hardworking people are, but what kind of economic system that they are operating. That decides how successful they will be. So I realized that the market system that the US has is far more open, allows even humble people to rise up quickly, economically and politically also, right? And that wasn't really happening in India. And I realized that wasn't because of the people that we are, but largely because of the system that we have built. And so my biggest sort of goal for coming back to India was to change the system, make it more market friendly, make it more evidence based. So public policy process that we follow, how can that be evidence based process? So that was my driving force for coming back to India and starting the center.
Okay. So what have been your most memorable or rewarding moments while teaching at the University of Michigan and your largely time spent in this organization?
Oh, too many to count. I think I would say, of course, one at Michigan, the excitement of designing new courses. So fortunately for me, the campus I was on at University of Michigan allowed people to design new courses. So I was able to offer a new course every year. Okay. And that was really exciting part of it because designing a course requires reading through, thinking through, understanding what you want to talk about, how you want to talk about those things, how do you relate those into the students, right? So I really was very happy with that experience of designing new courses. In working at CCS, I think there are lots of sort of successes. So we talk about, for example, people win. How many people we have been able to get excited about these ideas, right? We talk about ideas win. How many ideas have become part of the public discourse? We talk about policy win. How many policies we have been able to change, right? We also talk about institutional wins, right? Meaning that have our ideas become part of the institutions of governance, right? And because then they would stay on even after we are gone in a sense, right? So there are many under each bucket which we have done quite well. Right? I think most important thing that I learned working at CCS is the power of having right people in your team. So the biggest learning for me is that you are able to do as much as your team is capable of. So it's not just me who is going to be able to do everything. I need to have a team that is aligned to that goal, aligned with the larger vision, and is dedicated in their own personal ways to achieving that larger goal. I think that is my biggest learning. And I think reward has been that I have been able to find, luckily, people who are committed to the ideas as much or even more than I am, and they are willing to fight the fight for these ideas in different ways and different forms.
Yeah. Now I'll just shift the topic to our country's economic perspective, and I'll just ask you that, looking at many government policies with the poor people as their target groups, for instance, policies towards rural credit and education, why do you think these target groups and these targets are not being achieved?
I think there were two specific things about rural credit and education. So I can answer them specifically, but I think generally what I would say, in my experience working in public policy for 20 years in India, two things. One, people don't understand the difference between design of a scheme and implementation of a scheme. Right? So often you talk to people, they always say design idea was very good, implementation was bad. Right? What I learned in my experience, that is quite the opposite. In most cases, the idea itself is bad. Right? And often people don't realize that just because idea sounds good, idea has a good intention, helping people, right? All of that. Somehow people think that's a good idea. Right? But you realize in public policy work that just because it sounds good, just because it's supposed to be helping people, doesn't make a good policy idea. There's a lot more that has to go into it for idea to be effective. Right? So I would say that in most education, credit, in many of these areas, many of the schemes themselves, the larger public policy framework and the idea within which we are operating, that itself is wrong. Of course, implementation obviously is a challenge. Right? But my sense is that if it was implemented well, we would be doing one worse. Right? So if you think about it, a bad law or bad policy is implemented thoroughly, then you do a lot more damage than implementing it partially. Right? So it's not so much always about implementation. Is, in my view, is largely about the policy ideas themselves. Okay? Give an example quickly. Right to Education Act. Right? Now nobody can argue against it. We want every child to be educated in the country, irrespective of where you are born, which family you are part of. Right? And that's the motivation behind the Right to Education Act. So it's a great idea. Right? People say that it's because not implemented well, it's not succeeding. My argument has been that the idea itself is wrong. Right? So what RT does is that requires every school to look alike. Right? So it requires that schools should have this size plot of land, the buildings should be of this size, the classroom would be of this size, teacher would have these qualifications. Right? So every input in the school is defined in the act. Okay, this is how schools should be. Right? So therefore, a school in Delhi would be very similar in terms of the structure and inputs to a school in Bolangir in Odisha. Right? And that is the idea of achieving equality.
Yeah.
So I want to give equal education to all children, irrespective of where they are.
Yeah.
Right? So let's make all schools equally look alike. What happens there is that the learning is different. Learning is not the same. Right? So what we have done in RTE, which is a bad idea, is that we equated input with outcomes. We basically argued that if we get good inputs, a good school building, a qualified teacher, a well-paid teacher, then learning would happen automatically. Right? Which is a bad idea. Learning does not happen automatically. Right? And you can see that all around us. Right? So what we need to do is to design RTE which is focused on learning, not on inputs. Right? And that's the bad idea. That's the important part of the problem. So unless we understand that, you can keep implementing RTE, can talking about how much money we need, how many teachers we need, all of those things. But it's not going to really address the key challenge, which is learning.
Well, you just changed my point of view about talking about the policies and also I really love that answer. So, and now I would like to speak to you about one of your research papers. In one of them, you were focusing on reforms for effective governance. You said that the license Raj may have been dismantled, and now there is less emphasis on this particular aspect of the larger governance structure. So what reforms do you think should be implemented for effective governance?
I think the biggest reform, I think most people will agree with this who have studied the challenges in India, is deciding what government should do and should not do. Today we have Indian government doing virtually everything. There is no agency that can do everything well. Which is why in business, for example, we talk about core competence.
Yes.
What is the core competency of your company,
Yes.
of your team, and focus on those things and let other things be done by other people.
Yeah.
Right? So similarly, we have to ask what is the core necessity or core function of the state, and we need to get state to do those things first before we ask the state to do thousand other things. Right? So today, Indian government is everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at any part of our life, government is involved with it, right? And it's trying to get more and more involved, unfortunately.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There are areas where they're not even supposed to be at all involved,
Yes.
right? In our personal life, for
Yes.
example.
Okay.
Right? And so unless we change that idea, unless we challenge the fact that government must first define its core functions, focus and deliver on those core functions before we give responsibility or power to government to do other things. Right? And that's why I think you see the core function basically protecting life and liberty and property of citizens is the lowest performing thing in the current government, right? Across the country, not just central, but also state, right? And local government. Right? They do many other things, but the core function of running a good judicial system, a good police system, right, is not really there. And providing some good fundamental public goods.
Yeah. So well, I'm very impressed with the answer, and I will just end this interview by just asking you that like looking in the future, what trends do you foresee in the line of economics and social policy? Like what kind of changes will be involved in the future? And like for students like me who are interested in economics and social policy. So, what ASAP guidelines or what tips would you like to give including the people?
I think I would like to remind people of the byline of CCS, which is a social change through public policy. Right? So if you're interested in larger social change, I think all my first, in a sense, request to all young people would be, think about, understand public policy. So even if you don't work in the public policy sector, you still are going to be affected by public policy. You're part of a country, part of a state. Policies of the state or country will affect you. Right? And so even as a citizen, you need to understand public policy and see what impact it has. Right? And be able to engage effectively as a citizen. Obviously, it would be great if you also engage as a professional, as a career. Right? That would be even better. So I think both ways, as a citizen as well as a professor, you need to understand the importance of the public policy.
Thank you so much for your time and the interview, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much.